Here we are with the sky this month. We're talking about from March the 12th to April the 9th. So of course, the first thing I did, hang on, why is this not advancing up? The first thing I did was I checked Richard Corbett's wonderful newspaper article. He's sort of the go-to authority now for what's happening the next month. And he concluded that not much was happening with the planets. And I checked it out, and that's actually the case. Mars is going to be up there, and you can find Mars among the stars, but there's not really much exciting that's happening with the planets. There are a couple of astronomical events. Daylight saving time. I like to think of this as an astronomical event, and I'll tell you why. And also the March equinox. So those are the things that I'd like to talk about. So daylight saving time. Well, first of all, it's going to be in a couple of days, Sunday, March the 14th at 2 a.m. Of course, it's spring, and so you remember spring forward. So you set your alarm for 2 a.m. Okay? So then when you wake up at 2 a.m., you advance your clock to 3 a.m. Then you get one less hour of sleep, as well as the time it takes to get back to sleep at 2:05 a.m. Okay?
Funny.
Or you can set the clock 1 hour ahead before you go to sleep and go to bed an hour early, and then it all works out. So that's definitely the best thing to do. Now, the next thing is also, if you are commuting Monday and Tuesday, be extra vigilant, because apparently traffic accidents go up on the first couple of days when there is a change in the clock, either forward or backward. So be extra vigilant. Now, this daylight saving time is the only event that changes the entire universe at a government decree. Giant galaxies containing billions of stars suddenly rise an hour later than they did the night before. So that's a pretty impressive thing. Okay, so now that we've got that one out of the way, let's move on to the March equinox. Well, in New Zealand, this means that summer is ending and autumn begins. And I picked New Zealand particularly because the America Cup sailboat races are going on right now. And of course, as autumn comes on, the winds pick up. And so that would affect your strategy and the design of your boat, because right now is when they're actually doing the races. So it's getting windier down there. And then in Seychelles, it means winter ends and spring begins. Okay, so the March equinox occurs not just on a specific day, but at a specific minute of the day, Saturday, March the 20th at 2:37 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So again, it's in the morning when you should be asleep. The sun is directly overhead somewhere along the equator at that time. And that's the only time in this window of a time where the sun is directly overhead of along the equator. So the question is, where? Where is the sun going to be directly overhead? So first of all, are there any guesses? Just by knowing that it's 2:37 a.m., that's when the sun crosses the Pacific Daylight Time. That's when the sun crosses the equator. Any guesses as to where the sun is at that point, directly overhead?
Somewhere around Canary Islands, but on the equator.
Around the Canary Islands on the equator? Okay, that's...
I'm mute. Okay.
Yes.
The
Okay.
sun is down there, Bruce. It's down there.
Down there.
Yeah.
Down where?
And you go right down through the earth in the direction of wherever the Canary Islands are, and you go down there. You got to look through the earth.
From here or from the Canary Islands?
from here. I mean,
Okay,
it'd be
from here.
great if you were in the Canary Islands, you could see it, but it's kind of like not, it's kind of, there's this bloody planet in the way.
Okay. Let's maybe you know, I heard once, you know, if you dig a hole starting in seashell, dig a hole straight through the earth, where do you come out? The answer is you come out in seashell. Okay. And that's because you can't dig a hole through the earth. Okay, so let's go back. 2:37 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Now, it turns out that you have to add 7 hours to that to find out what the time is at Greenwich in England, which is your 0 longitude. And the reason it's 7 hours, not 8, is because, of course, we switched to Pacific Daylight Time. So 7 hours, that means it's 9:37 a.m. in Greenwich, England, when this event happens. What that means is it's still not noon yet. Noon is yet to come, and therefore it must mean that the sun is east of Greenwich. So it's in fact got another 2 hours and 23 minutes to get to noon. So the sun sort of appears to go around the earth at about 15 degrees per hour. So taking 15 degrees, you got 2 hours, 23 minutes. You kind of work it out, do a bit of calculating, and you get 35.75 degrees east longitude. Okay. So the next thing you do is you have to check this out. So what you do is you use Stellarium. And what you do is you dial in the location that I just gave, 0 degrees latitude, 34 degrees, 45 minutes east longitude. And then you select the Alt as grid, which is basically your overhead sky, because of course you want to identify when the sun is directly overhead. So it's going to look something like this. You're looking straight up. In Stellarium at the sky above the point 0 degrees north, 35 degrees, 45 minutes east. And this is what you'll see. So that's straight overhead right there. Then what you have to do is you have to advance the time until you get to 2:37 a.m. Remember Pacific Daylight Time, okay, March the 20th, 2021. And this is what you see. And what do you notice? The sun is not directly overhead. Why is that? Any ideas as to why that's is not directly overhead? This is a test.
Failed again.
What's that?
Sorry, I just mumbled failed again.
Failed again?
Could it be what you?
I know it's because of the Anna Lemon. The Anna Lemon.
That is correct.
That's what you talked about last month.
It's about what we talked about last time, which is that the sun doesn't go steadily around the ecliptic. The sun is not overhead. East, by the way, is on the left. I made sure of that when I did this. And that means that the sun hasn't reached noon yet at this particular spot. And if we take a look at the analemma, we'll notice that, well, there's March, the March equinox. And notice as winter grades into spring, the sun is not here where it should be. It's kind of not reached there. It's fallen behind schedule. So that's exactly the problem here. And so what you have to do now is you can't change the time, right? You can't just sort of say, oh, well, let's wait till noon, or wait till it's directly overhead. You can't, because it's a 2:37 Pacific Daylight Time. You can't change the time. You have to change your spot on the earth. So you move east instead. Well, after a bit of fiddling around, I figure out that you need to move to 37 degrees, 36 odd minutes. So instead of 35 degrees, 45 minutes, it's 37 degrees, 36 minutes. That's about 130 miles east of where your initial guess was. And this is what happens when you relocate yourself in Stellarium and you look overhead and the sun is a bullseye. It's directly overhead. Okay, so this is the point on the Earth where the sun is directly overhead. So here it is. So this is 0 degrees north latitude, 37 degrees, 36.515 minutes east. Anybody recognize the place?
It's just to the east of Nairobi.
Just to the east of Nairobi. And what is it that made you think this must be just to the east of Nairobi?
I looked up the longitude.
Okay, okay. So you obviously have a resource.
Yeah.
So you didn't recognize the place, but yeah. This, if we zoom out a little bit, anybody recognize it now?
Mount Kilimanjaro.
Kilimanjaro.
That was my first guess too. It turns out that's not correct, but that kind of crossed my mind. So, well, how about this? Now, do you recognize anything? Anybody recognize anything?
Lake Victoria.
Excellent. Lake Victoria. There you go. So we are now in Africa, and you can see where our little spot is right there. So this particular equinox occurs over land. If it wasn't for COVID, you could actually go and take a plane flight there. As a matter of fact, I took the trouble to find out how you would get from Nairobi to this little place up here, Githongo, or Githongo, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. And it's about a 4 to 5 hour car trip. So it's not out of the ordinary here. So you just go to the Jomo Kenyatta airport in Nairobi and then book a car trip to Githongo, and you go by Mount Kenya. I'm assuming that that's not Mount Kilimanjaro. I think it's not nearly as high, actually. Okay, so when you get close, you have to make the left turn, and then you'll have to walk across some fields. And I did find out that in this area, they do a lot of tea growing. Matter of fact, when I sort of first tried to find out where on earth was this place, there was a little photo, and it was of a tree trading place. And then when I sort of did a little bit of Googling, I found that, yeah, there's a lot of tea leaf harvesting in this area. So you're going to have to ask the farmer to cut across this field, and then you'll be right under the sun. But you got to do that not by tomorrow, but by the following Saturday. So I think you won't have enough time to do your 14 days of quarantine before you leave. So that is where the sun is directly overhead. It's at one particular instant, and then it will just keep on cruising north, and it's going to keep on doing that until June, around the June the 21st, when it will get as far north as it's going to go, and then it will train back again, head towards the autumn equinox. By the way, the equinox is not equal day and equal night. The day is about 12 or 18 minutes, somewhere in that range, longer than the night. And that's because the sun is not just a little point in the sky, it's a fat object. So it takes a while to sink below the horizon. And it is also, there's a refraction of light as it goes down over the horizon. So the light actually comes over the horizon and you can still see it. I was thinking that perhaps the ancients figured out where the equinox was. Obviously, they couldn't measure. I assume they couldn't measure equal day and equal night, or even that close. But what they could do is say that the sun rose and set 180 degrees apart, and I think that would probably be indicative of when the equinox occurred. So that would be the way they would measure it. Okay, so basically that's it for this the sky this month. I hope that you'll be able to get outside and do some observing, and don't forget to sign up for the Explore the Universe program. That'll really get you out. And as Charles has already done, he's talked about a lot of the things that are available to be seen right now in the spring sky. He sort of highlighted the spring sky. So get those binoculars, or even if you have a small scope, and head out there and do the observing while the weather's good and the sun is still not too high in the sky.